In this video, we're going to explore how to make changes to your table to get more specific information. By default, your calculator will show you information in a table, starting with 0 and going up by units of 1. Sometimes, though, you need more granular information or smaller detail. So I've put the equation in my y equals key of 2x so that we can look at our table. And I've pulled up the table. Now notice, to pull up a table, the graph key has the word table written in blue right above it. So if I want to pull up something written in blue, I press the blue second key, and then I press that button, and it's going to activate whatever's written in blue. So in this case, it's bringing up the table. And when I look at my table for y equals 2x, it's starting at 0 and it's going up by 1s. But I want you to notice something written here at the bottom. It says press plus for delta table. That means to change the interval of your table. So all we have to do is press our plus key, and it tells us here at the bottom, I've pressed the plus key, and it says, okay, your table's changing by 1. Well, yeah, I could have seen that, but once I've done that, I can now make changes to what my table is changing by. So I've replaced that 1 with a 0.25. I want to have my table go up by 0.25 instead of by 1. And when I press enter, now you can see my intervals are going up by 0.25. So I'm getting a lot more information between 0 and 1 and between 1 and 2. But what if I needed to see this information instead of seeing it by 0.25s? What if I needed to see it by the fractions? So instead of seeing decimals, actually seeing fractions. So again, if I press my plus key, it brings back up the change table at the bottom, and I'm going to clear out that 0.25. And first I'm going to replace it with the numerator of my fraction, which is a 1. And then I'm going to use my fraction bar. To do that, I press alpha y equals, and it brings up the fraction menu. And I'm going to select 1, which is a basic fraction. It's going to put in the fraction bar, and when I press my 4 and put enter, it's going to bring up that same information in the table, but this time everything's written in fractions instead of being written in decimals. So that gives you an awful lot of control over the table, just learning how to use that plus sign. What we're going to do now is, I've cleared the calculators. I want to explore the more detailed table setup button or table set button. So notice right here above our window key, written in blue, are the words table set. So table set is where I can get very much more detailed information about my table. So when I pull it up after I've reset the calculator, when it's in default mode, it always starts at our table is at 0 and the interval it's changing by is going by 1s. But what if I had a problem that wanted to know the value of y in a table when x equaled negative 735? Well, I could pull up my table and I could sit and scroll for the next couple of minutes. Maybe my finger gets a little bit tired and eventually I could get there. But I'm going to use the table set key and have my calculator jump there immediately. So when it says table start, it's just where is your table starting right now. So right now my table is at 0. If your calculator, if you were doing something else in your table and then press the table set key, you may have a different number here than a 0. It's just where your table is right now. So I'm going to change this right now button. I'm going to clear it and I'm going to put in negative 735. That says right now I want to see my table at negative 735. And then when I press my second and graph key to pull up the table, it's starting at negative 735. So now the other thing I want to talk about is this independent auto and ask. Right now our table is set at auto, meaning it fills out the X values for us. But I want to experiment with changing this to ask and show you how that works. So we're going to actually look at a star test problem, and see how we could use it when we set it to ask. So what happens is when I go to my table set and I scroll down, when I get to auto, I'm going to scroll my cursor over one and highlight the ask and press enter. And then when I pull up my table, notice it's now blank. I've actually got two equations sitting in my y equals key, but this whole thing is blank. Because I've set it on ask, it is waiting for me to fill in numbers here so that it can give me the information. So let's see how this works. Here we have a problem. It's actually a system of equations problem. And I know you're thinking, well, hey, I could just put this into second trace calc and do an intersection. And yes, that works perfectly great. But I want to show you another option, and it's also a good way to demonstrate the ask button. So I still need to get these both into y equals, so I need to solve this top equation for y so that I can put it into the calculator. So it's going to be y equals -1 minus 2x. So now I have two equations in y equals format that I can put into the y equals of my calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to bring up my table. And you'll notice that my table is sitting here waiting for something, waiting for me to do something. And what the question is asked is, which one of these values makes this system of equation true? So I'm just going to put in each one of these values into my table. It's going to be like my own private table of data. So I'm going to start out with the first one. I'm going to type in my numerator of 6, and then using my fraction bar, set up the fraction 6/5, and when I press enter, it goes ahead and shows me the y values for each one of those two equations I put in. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put in the other three answer choices, pressing enter between each one. And now you can see I have my own private table. What this does is it saves me time. I don't have to scroll to each one and keep changing intervals. I can set up the table to give me just the data of my problem. And when I do this, I can see very easily that my answer has to be this -2 because it's the one that makes the equation, both of them, true.